Hello and welcome back to the channel, folks. Today we're going to take a look at a little bit more complicated mod, and it's for the SNES Mini. The standard Super Nintendo natively had RGB out, so it just looked a lot better. Well, later on when they revised the system, they came out with the SNES Mini. Well, in this revision they took away the RGB output that the original had. So nowadays, if you try to play a retro console across a modern display, it generally just looks terrible. So a company like HD Retrovision makes cables where you can come out of older consoles and come out component cables into a scaler or your TV to upscale it to like 1080p. Anyway, on the SNES Mini, you can't do that. Well, a modder by the name that goes by Voltar has an RGB kit that you can make for your SNES Mini and install it on that. And what that does is it takes and it outputs RGB. So you can use the HD Retrovision cables and other component output cables on the system. I mean, you don't have to do this. You can always just go get an original SNES and it already does it. But if you're like me and you like messing with stuff, and I can't help that, I want to tear apart a SNES Mini and make it as good as an original SNES, but have a smaller form factor. Anyway, today this is a pretty complicated soldering job. It's not that you have to be an expert at soldering to do this or anything. It's just very small, finite parts. But if you're patient, have plenty of lighting really more than anything, it's a very, very simple thing to do. So we're going to dive into it. I'll do my best to film it where you can get a good look at it. First time I'm really doing a video like this as far as a soldering job goes, so just kind of bear with me and I'll show you to the best of my ability what I'm doing. Alright folks, what we got here is just a quick little demonstration of how you take this thing apart. We sped it up quite a bit because it is a royal bore to watch, and also this is one of the easiest systems you will ever disassemble. It's literally one of them, every screw you see, just take it out. Almost all the screws are the same length and size, so you really can't get them mixed up. But yeah, there's no need to drag this out and show you every little nook and cranny of taking these out. Next up here, we got a little video just pointing out where we're going to be soldering, what points on the motherboard. This was really difficult to kind of film and show you guys, because my hand kept getting in the way, and I apologize for that, but you can see when I scale back or pan out the camera here, try to at least give you a little shot of where the wires are going. There's a bunch of online demos for this. You can refer to Voltar's channel as well. He has a really good video on this that probably show you where the wires go a little bit better than what I am here. But like I say, it's a pretty easy mod. When you buy this mod, it comes with stranded wire. I could not get the stranded wire to go through these holes for nothing. I ended up using solid wire I ordered, and it went through the holes way easier. I think that's something that if I was you guys trying this, I would definitely do. I just don't know if I would even fool with the stranded wire, because it makes this job 10 times more difficult. Fixing to get into the actual chip itself here in a second. The chip that mounts onto the back of this is where all the magic happens, really. It takes and it mounts on to the back of the composite input that's on the Super Nintendo, and this little chip adds the RGB element into it. The little points I'm soldering on here is actually where your input pokes through the PCB board. So you're just tapping into that signal right there. Here I'm putting a bit more flux on it. This wasn't a hard thing to solder. It was just, it gumped up pretty easy. So, but yeah, you just solder all these points up. Then up top there, you can see the traces. That's where we're fixing to solder the wires onto. It's not that hard at all, but I do recommend when you get into this part of the job, have a fine tip soldering iron. Like you see me here, apply plenty of flux to it, and having a set of tweezers comes in really handy too, because this is like 28 gauge wire, and it is super hard to try to bend with your fingers. And keep on these small points. It's like what I'm doing here. I bought this killer little iFixit kit. It's like 70, 80 bucks. It's not exactly cheap, but it has every little modding option you can imagine in it, from the screws to everything. But it comes in super handy with little mods like this. Alright, coming up here next, I've got a video here that hopefully can demonstrate to you the before and after of the mod. On the left hand side, we've got the RGB mod using the HD Retrovision cables. And on the right hand side, we have the standard output of the Super Nintendo with its composite. Here on the space scene, you can't really tell much with the background, but if you look up at the sky, or as far as the score goes and stuff, you can see how on the left hand side it's so much sharper and crisper. And down at the bottom too, where you're looking at the lasers and the shield and all that, it's so much crisper and sharper on the left hand side. Here in a minute, we get into an outdoor scene. Of course, you can tell it with the ships and all that, but it just doesn't stand out quite as much on this black background. Here in a minute, though, like I was fixing to say, we get into a outdoor scene where you're flying through these caverns and such. That's where it really, really stands out. You can see here with the trees and stuff how they're just so much cleaner and crisper, and just how everything from the brown and the rocks and all that looks so much better. Depends on what you're watching this video on. I mean, we do put all these out in 4K, so they do look good on a larger video screen. But on a larger screen, if you're watching this on a TV, you'll be able to see a major difference. It's a cheap mod. It only costs about 30 bucks, and it's well worth the money. Well, anyway, guys, I really appreciate you checking out the video. If you have any questions, just hit me up about the mod. And like I say, check out Voltar's channel for a little bit better video of the soldering job itself. Later.